Nikola metric, Tesla is actually worth $1 trillion right now, is our story for today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We're at the Grand Hyatt here in Atlanta, Georgia, and welcome. So one of the things that happened recently is that Nikola has been extensively discussing the fact that when you look at the number of orders they have from Budweiser and you add on the value of the electricity attached to it, it gives a per truck value of something like $750,000 per vehicle. So if you multiply that out, they're claiming $10 billion in value. The original truck is about 300K, but looking at the fuel spent over a certain amount of time to arrive at the numbers they've gotten. So we wanted to visit these numbers because we actually think they got them from Tesla and Tesla's energy business. And so what we wanted to focus on today is sort of reviewing all of this to determine value unlocking that's associated. So the first component of this I wanted to review is a comment made by J.B. Durand, who's the former CTO. He's still an advisor to the company. J.B. made the comment that he thought that the electric business was a bigger business for Tesla than the vehicle business and would show itself over time. So I heard that comment and I was thinking, wow, this is very strange, because when you look at how things have gone with Solar City and some of the electric efforts Tesla has made, yes, they're making an effort there, but it hasn't gotten the emphasis that's consistent with the size of the business that was expected by J.B. Durand. One of the other sort of backwards history of Tesla on their electric production is that they were very surprised at the fact that there was no effort on the part of the large auto companies to control the nature of the fuel that went into their vehicles. When it comes to electricity, yes, you will charge up at home, and that's home electricity, but from superchargers and others, Tesla manages the flow of electricity at pace, etc., as a way to provide an end-to-end solution for their customers. So there's a number of ways in which sort of the giant of Tesla's valuation really shows itself. The most obvious is the fact that when you go to a supercharger station, you're paying for that electricity. And in theory right now, most of the supercharger stations, at least in the United States, are in a situation where Tesla simply buys power from the local utility and then marks it up as they sell it to their customers to pay for having a margin on it, as well as pay for that facility. Well, it's kind of interesting because at any time, Tesla can make that decision to flip a switch, and all the electricity that's coming from those supercharger stations instantly become a revenue stream for Tesla. And because of how power sharing agreements work, this actually can happen very quickly. So it was my perception that, for example, if you're in California or all these different states, Tesla would have difficulties because they'd kind of have to chase the local utility to that location, look at the power usage, etc. But most utilities have kind of a power sharing agreement. And in that agreement, what basically happens is that electricity can be produced at one location and shipped to another location. So if Tesla decided to put up solar panels and produce electricity in one city or state, they could, under power sharing agreements, simply shift the power share back to that utility to handle wherever that power might be used by any of its consumers. So this kind of shows how then you can have superchargers anywhere and have it be a huge business. And it's also interesting to note that it's becoming the case that over the next year, Tesla's US business will actually end up being smaller than its international business. So in essence, you have Tesla potentially becoming a utility that's global in scale instantly. and you can anticipate the profit and etc. The thing we should note is that Tesla is doing large-scale batteries and grid-scale batteries and solar hookups. So it's entirely possible that they could get a loan, build a solar facility or a wind facility and provide electricity from it and have that feed everything around. We next go on to looking at solar installations. Again, if you look at those solar installations, we end up with another circumstance where power is being produced, pulled through to the cars, etc. In that case, obviously consumers are providing their own power, so Tesla's involved but not necessarily dominant there. I believe that they could end up buying power if they chose to from those consumers and reselling them to other car owners or back to the grid. There are all these options that are available. What's fascinating about all these numbers we just reviewed is a concept of recurring revenue. So anytime you think about an auto company, they sell a car, and then 3 years later, with a certain number of miles, they're hoping to get you out of that car into a newer vehicle. And so they have these revenue hits. And yes, they do have things like, are you going to do oil changes or routine maintenance? But in general, what we're seeing here is that they kind of have a one-time large amount of revenue and then it disappears. What's interesting about Tesla is because of its power emphasis, it not only interacts with the customer at the sales point for that vehicle, but because of the routine use of power, especially on the superchargers, you now have a situation where you actually have the company generating recurring revenue. And once you identify what the average of those numbers are, you can actually package that recurring revenue and sell it into the marketplace as an entire separate company driven by those numbers. Kind of a random example of that is, this is the reason why when you get a cell phone contract, most cell companies prefer for you to have a long-term contract, because on those long-term contracts, they can now package and monetize those contracts immediately versus the month-to-month when it's unknown if there's going to be revenue the next month. That is not the case. So what we see brewing here is the fact that if Tesla were to roll up all of their assets globally into its separate power company, in theory, that business is actually bigger than the auto business, but it's been showing a steady loss over this time period. The question that's obvious is, why is this the case? And the best we can figure is that Tesla actually has a very large potential antitrust problem on its hands, because the utility companies aren't going to like the fact that they have Tesla infringing on their business, and they're very powerful globally in terms of protecting consumers and having a relationship with regulators. We think that yes, Tesla will quietly get into this business and win on a big time scale, but we're actually very surprised because the numbers are already there to validate Tesla potentially being worth double its current size. And all they would have to do is package the routine production that's going on and then put in essence, a utility brand around it. And they now are able to enter the marketplace both as a car company as well as a utility company that's actually formidable. When you look at how things are valued, one of the reasons I think like Microsoft, for example, or even Apple to some extent, is so big in market cap is that they've got these hidden blocks of revenue that routinely hit, and there's a certain value that you assign to that, both with its growth over time, its growth over price over time. And so Tesla, in essence, becomes a utility company, and now it gets all these metrics. Utility companies actually grow pretty slowly, but the cash flow is consistent. And so there are a lot of folks who will put up cash to get recurring revenue from a utility, which is exactly what Tesla has on its back end. And then obviously there's obviously there's expansion of the Model Y into China and Europe. There are a number of other ways that instant revenue is going to be hitting the balance sheet, but we thought it was pretty amazing to see that there's been a very quiet non-effort by Tesla to emphasize how big and growing the electric business is. But I feel like the main reason for this is that once they go full bore on this, all those utility companies that are being paid for shipping Tesla power to its cars, etc., I think will be angry. And I think the lobbying power of those entities will go after Tesla and potentially damage their ability to retain control on both ends, and that this business may actually be broken up. So we'll see if this occurs, but putting a $1 trillion tag on Tesla, doubles or triples the stock price. And we definitely see it coming down the pike sooner or later. And I just think it's a byproduct of everything they're doing and doing well in combining all the different elements that would go into delivering. At any rate, I want to thank you for taking time to join us here at the Grand Hyatt in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going to walk over. There's some really beautiful views here that I wanted to show, but I needed the sunlight to do our show, but we don't need it in terms of just showing you some of the awesome views that are behind the facility here. So I wanted to say tschüss, macht's gut, au revoir, la hitrot, choda hafez. In Jamaica we say enough respect, walk woodman. Yep. So right now, because of COVID, they're like really cheap rates when it comes to visiting. It looks like there's a wedding party that's going on here, but this is the pièce de résistance. So that is what you call an awesome waterfall, as you can hear it behind me. And again, this is the Grand Hyatt in Buckhead, and absolutely beautiful. Thanks once again for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. We look forward to our next conversation. There's one last thing that I'm choosing to cover today, which is the fact that Tesla's stock price has become rather stagnant lately. The two things we can say is that on Fridays, the stock price tends to be down dramatically, and on Mondays, it tends to be up. The ability to execute and maintain pins is really awesome by market makers, and I think it's unfortunate because it's easy to lose money if you're trading. So we want to just make an end note of that as well. Have a great day, and bye for now.